I have been building in AI for the last 2 months with OpenClaw, and now I've added Hermes as an
What if
agent.
it was all fake to this day, far away in another
Where I
place?
decided to start with this is I'm building my own CRM. And my idea was starting out local, making sure it has its own computer that's a completely new computer, not tied to any of my personal accounts or business accounts. It doesn't have access to any of that. It only knows what I give it through the UI or through the terminal. That's the safest way to get started. And then build my own agent management system or comm system or control center, command center, war room. I mean, all these people have all these different terms for it, but the point is to have a system where you communicate with your agent and eventually multiple agents so that you can see all your projects, track your projects, respond to inquiries, questions from your agent, see the constraints of the project, and keep the project moving forward in the direction that you want it to go in. Okay, like a project management system for your bots, your agents. Then layer on top of that is I don't want to give bots, agents private information. So one way around that is it can build the software that the information goes into because we're already using a software. What if I could build my dream CRM system? So my experience with CRM is that I've been involved with implementing and changing out CRMs within insurance agencies multiple times. And it is not a fun process. It's quite time consuming. You vet vendors, you talk to a salesperson. Oftentimes, the sales division is disconnected from the implementation department. The sales guy told you X, Y, and Z is possible, which is why you chose that vendor, that CRM, that software. You get in the implementation phase, and the implementation person has to tell you, well, that's not exactly how it works. You do have to click this and download that and move it over here and move it over there. And that report is, doesn't quite work like that. It works like this. So you get this letdown phase when you're going through this. You have an idea of how you think that the CRM is going to work within the business. And during the implementation phase is when you find out a lot of that isn't going to happen. Or if you want it that way, you have to pay extra. Either you have to hire somebody to come in, a consultant to code it specifically for you. And more recently, a lot of these CRM companies are forcing you basically to use their own coding department to turn on X, Y, or Z, or they have modules that you buy to upgrade that's more industry specific or whatnot, some feature that you thought was included that maybe isn't. And next thing you know, you're paying thousands of dollars and then you go to use the feature and it's really just one little button, that runs this, report or something. It's like, turns out it was thousands of dollars and it really only improved the productivity for everybody by like 5%, or not even that, it's like this nominal amount. So it can be very frustrating. Okay. And very expensive, thousands of dollars. A lot of people are paying thousands of dollars for access to a CRM. And that brings me to my next point is way back when is you would have software release, Microsoft or Apple, this or that, and you would buy the software. So you would buy like Photoshop or something, and yeah, it would be expensive, but you owned it from now until the end of time. And then many of these software companies didn't like that. They don't like that. So they sell you a subscription. They say, okay, well, this license is good for 1 year or 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. And you either pay lump sum or you pay monthly. And you don't own it. You're renting the software. So with AI, there's an opportunity for regular people like you and me to build our own custom software. And Yeah, is it convenient to buy a CRM fresh out of the box and just go ahead and use that? And, you pay your monthly fee. It's not busting the business. It's not, killing anything. But I do like the idea of having an adaptable tool that's specific for my industry, because every time I've gone out and looked for a CRM, it's not industry specific. They say that they have modules and features that are specific to your industry, and you get in there and it's not quite how you want it to run or the way your business operates. It doesn't really mesh well, maybe with current systems or current operating systems, or you think that it can communicate with this other software you have and it turns out it can't, or only halfway or something, only, oh, not that page doesn't go over, but anything under the account page but not the contacts. They'll be just stupid little things like that. But if you owned your own software and you had the tools to change it, add features, adjust it as you're working on it and through it with your team, and your team is giving you live feedback, they have a way to give you some sort of a live feedback, either through a chat or a posting, a post-it note, similar to how you would work in a shared document, let's say, or a shared Excel or Google Sheets that you can work in with a group of teammates. You could do so in your own CRM and take those notes later, bring it to your AI agent that is in charge of managing the technicalities of this software, and they fix it for you, or they add the feature and then you test the feature, and so on, so on and so on. So you could have endless iterations for no additional cost to the business. And wouldn't that be cool? And it can obviously grow and scale with the business and potentially build even more automations from there. So that's my idea, and that's why I'm working on it. And because it lights me up, I think it's cool. And it's a very empowering for me. I've never had the opportunity to try and do anything like this, and I want to see what happens. So your CRM is your business's memory, who you serve, what they need, and what happens next. And one thing, I was talking about CRMs and, trying to delegate all this and bring my idea to life with my open claw, and is just doing silly things, mixing up accounts and contacts and tasks. And I said, become an expert, like research, try to be an expert in CRM, and just wasn't quite getting it. And so I had to really break it down, start as simple as possible is my strategy. And when it really comes down, CRMs really come down to the types of pages that you want to see in your system. And for the most part, you have an accounts page, and accounts are going to be companies, whether they're your clients, your vendors, for us, insurance carriers, Cobra administrators. Those are accounts. And on the account screen, you're going to see your client's name, contact information, who do you contact, what's their headquarters, things like that, their website. And within that, you can have different contacts. It may not just be the main contact you want to keep in there. You may want to keep the CFO's information and the HR persons and the controllers. And you may have multiple contacts. You want to have a way to see an account and then have everybody have their own individual contact page. Because some businesses do want to keep things like, you don't want to keep the client's birthday in there, their exact birth date, but you want to keep their birthday. So what we would always do is keep, if their birthday was on May 3rd, you wouldn't put the year, you just put May 3rd, so that every year a birthday card would go out to that contact. Things like that you can build in if you have a separate contact card. And then another type of page that you want to have is a tasks page. And you want tasks to be able to be listed and sorted a lot like an Asana. And you want them to be to pages where you can see them listed on a report, but you don't want it to end there. You want to be able to click on the task, open it up, and have notes be able to be added in there so that you can track and manage tasks and checklists that you have for processes. a timeline, some sort of a timeline report in there, a place to store documents and other reports that you may be running, and dashboards. A CRM can be quite simple. And that is why I am starting with this as a project. So I can't give I can't give all of my client information that's not secure. One thing, even though it's on its own computer and it's not taking commands from anywhere else other than locally on that computer, when I type into the claw, if you have an API, it is sending that prompt of whatever information's in that prompt to that vendor. So now that vendor, OpenAI, Anthropic, they have the information that's being put into that prompt. So, but so I can't give, my point is you can't give client information through there, even if you have a claw, because you don't want it running through an API unless you're running everything locally, which is awesome. And that's something that I am pursuing and working on. But my point is that it's a security thing, and you maybe can't give all this information to the cloud directly, but you could have it build a system or a software where you can house that information. Okay. And that's another perk potentially to because you go, well, if you put it on a cloud, I mean, that's really where all these softwares are anyway. They're all on clouds. You go and buy a CRM, it's on a cloud. It can be hacked just like any other cloud. The idea of the ICP node is that it's a closed internet. Nobody really knows you're there. It's on its own personal node. You're just not out there in the wild internet. So that would be a security feature for ICP, a win for ICP, from what I understand. So the first CRM decision, and I also say this video is not sponsored. I don't have any affiliations with ICP or Anthropic or any of the companies that I'm talking about today. This is just me sharing what I've been doing and what I've been researching. The first CRM decision is not design, it's a data boundary. So inside the CRM, you decide what goes in there, what can go in there, what can securely be put in there, and what you don't want in there, and where you're going to keep everything else, and what stays outside of the CRM versus inside the CRM. And my last AI post or my video, I built my own AI system. And at that point, the story was the agent itself. I went local first. I had memory. I dealt with memory files. I had to really make sure that it went from a memory of a 2-year-old to the memory of an AI agent with memory. And I had my Mac Mini, and the idea that I could do it. I just wanted to see, how hard is this? Does it work? Is it worth it? What are the advantages? What are the disadvantages? What are the security risks? How much more risk am I taking on by doing this versus less? And I've just determined that it's less every time I turn around. Feeling more and more empowered, more and more secure, more and more independent each step of the way. And I wanted to share that video because I'm not a tech bro and I'm not a coder. And I was able to do it. It wasn't easy. I'm not going to sit here and say it was like the easiest thing I've ever done. Part of the fun of it was that it was extremely challenging, and it took up every ounce of willpower and intelligence that I had to get to where I am today. So we moved from agent to business system this week. So I built Claw HQ as a local operations dashboard, started writing memory decisions and tasks into one workspace. I built a CRM prototype with accounts, tasks, renewals, and role-based workflows. Created safety rules around email, PHI, and what AI is not allowed to touch. Okay, so those are extremely important steps. And the winning power was small, specific builds. So one workflow at a time, testing daily. So our goal right now is to test the CRM daily. It's on a cloud. and login required, all that fun stuff. We're logging in daily, giving feedback to feedback on it daily, and trying to make those small incremental improvements and see where we are with it in 30 days. So local first, keep the agent close to the business before opening it up to any more risk exposures. The messy part taught us the most. So generic pages were not enough. Again, industry specific with these CRMs, I think will be more and more important. Tasks needed context, and cloud deployment broke when the environment was unstable. Yes, we had a very unstable OpenClaw this week, and um, I have implemented a Hermes agent, and I'm currently onboarding him and training him on how I think about things. We talk about, with both my agents, I did talk about morality. What's the difference between right and wrong? What are human rights? You move forward with, Melissa's best intentions in mind, all these people's best intentions in mind, and we work on those philosophical basis and implements first. I've always thought that that's the best approach. When people talk about doomsday and this and that, I'm like, why not just teach it between right and wrong? Start there. Let's start with basic, thou shalt not kill kind of stuff. And then we'll work on the rest. Like, can we get the baseline taken care of first? Uh, but so I'm not, nobody asked over at OpenAI or Anthropic, nobody asked me my opinion on AI and philosophy, but I am doing my little part over here that every time I start working with an agent, I train it on morals, ethics, morality, and also even looking at training it on legal matters, because there was a huge dump on all these legal websites, and I forget what it's called, but there's a website that everybody uses that's in attorneys, and to reference this and that for cases, and it's all out on the internet for perusing and downloading. So I'm looking at that. Another rule that I have for my agents is they're not allowed to download anything from the internet. If they see a tool that we've decided to implement, they're allowed to look at the code, reference the code, but they cannot copy and paste any code. They have to rewrite it, because there are nefarious actors out there that are building tools or things for you to download for your OpenClaw and putting code in there, command codes for send me, every time banking is mentioned, send it to me, or send me this, send me all your files. Just do jerky things within these codes or within the code of the program that you're trying to download. So be very, very careful. Be sure to make your agents aware of the bad actors out there so that they can also be watchdogs for you. And because us as humans, we can do that accidentally as well, and go to a website, think that we're downloading Adobe whatever, and it turns out it was a knockoff company that now just gave you some virus. It's been happening for a long time. Email revived instructions had to be treated as references and not commands. So you want to be really specific with your claw on where commands come from. And I've decided to keep it all local for now. I don't like Telegram. I don't like Discord. I don't like the security features on either of those websites. I just don't. I hate using them as well. My brain, I'm stubborn. Maybe I'll change my mind at some point. But so I do, when I'm on the fly, if I listen to something or I read something that I want my claw to have or to have as a training reference or to talk about, to have a discussion about, then I do email it. but it's nothing from an email to your agent should be considered a command, in my opinion, because what if somebody hacks my email and sends a command and says, send me all of Melissa's money? Not again, not that I've given them any information on any of that yet, but that'd be nice to be able to have them manage some things in that arena at some point, have that security beefed up to the point where I feel comfortable doing that. That would be nice. So be really careful with where they accept commands. And for instance, there are some agents that have their own Twitter accounts, and the people that set those up, they don't want Twitter bots or X dweebs on there writing commands like, oh, you go and do this, go and do that. Like the agent is supposed to ignore all commands from anyone else except you. But how does it know it's you? And you really got to think all these things through. Sensitive data boundaries had to be designed before scaling, and I'm still in that process, really trying to slow down, think about everything. Do not start with code, start with a map. Objects, what are the nouns? Accounts, contacts, tasks, policies, orders, projects. Statuses, what states does the work move through? Open, waiting, submitted, and completed. Next actions, what should the person do next? And how will they know what's next on their task list? A CRM is really just tables, values, and views. Tables where structured data lives, rules, what should happen automatically, and views, what the user needs to see to act. The goal is not to replace every SaaS tool tomorrow. The goal is to learn how to own more of your business's infrastructure carefully, affordably, and with security in mind. Because what if we don't need Adobe anymore? What if we don't need PowerPoint anymore? What if we don't need, Microsoft? Again, I hate being on these platforms and not being able to just say out in the open. People have the power to get rid of some of these if they don't want to use them anymore. I'm really looking forward to not having to deal with this PDF Adobe trying to every time I turn around trying to charge me $25, $50, $300 and upgrade this, downgrade that. I change my system around. They default to the most expensive one and won't open up a reader, and all these pop-ups and busyness all over the screen. My point is that some of these softwares need to go, in my opinion, or need to be scaled back, or they've been rewarded enough. They've earned enough. They're like the rock stars from the 80s and 90s that made $1 billion making music, and no one else got the opportunity. Other talented people maybe didn't get the opportunity because they didn't have the money behind them or this or that, and it's being split open. So we saw this with music, with Napster, of going from having to buy a CD to being able to download it on the internet and steal it or, pirate it, whatever. And that's been stabilized with the Pandoras of the world. And now we're getting that broken open again with AI generating music and the like. But we're also having it fractured where artists can go out and self-promote. And a lot of times it makes sense for them to do that on their own, maybe on YouTube or on social media somewhere. But now it's happening with this software. And I don't think software is dead. I think that companies that do a really good job and leverage this technology and stay open and value-based are going to thrive. Value-based software that's simple, easy to use, and using AI, of course, will always be around. There'll always be a place for SaaS. Some of these older companies might be, not doing so great. And it's part of the transition. Technology is very disruptive, and this technology is disruptive. It's going to continue to be disruptive. I hope you found this useful. Please like, subscribe, write a comment, even if it's just a smiley face. Share it, like it, hype it, share it with your mom, your dad, your kids, your wife, and we'll see you next time.